Welcome, all you shivering wretches, to this dark explainer. Today, we're plunging straight into the literal wreckage of a broken heaven. We're going to dissect a terrifying new reality forged by a figure known simply as the Wizard Philosopher. So let's bear witness to how the death of a deity birthed an entire ecosystem of beautifully terrifying emptiness.
The Wizard Philosopher addresses us directly with a rather chilling wake-up call. Basically, if you're looking to the silvered grove and mourning the pious hermit, the guy who once healed wounds and read the wind like it was some holy book, well, you should know that he is dead. And get this, he died laughing. The whole era of the shepherd guiding the flock, that's completely over. We've been unchained from that stagnant heavenly orbit and left to wander in infinite nothingness of our own making.
So let's dive into Act 1, the death of old gods and the altar of entropy. This new reality is actually built upon a macabre altar, one constructed directly on the silent, mountainous ribs of a fallen deity. You see, the Wizard Philosopher realized something profound here. To simply consume this dead deity was just another form of hunger, and out of that realization came what he calls the doctrine of the divine joke. It's this chilling idea that the divine is literally nothing more than a broken husk of cold, gray clay. All of our human virtue, our chivalry, our sacred geometry, it's all just a mask to cover up our inherent fear of the dark.
Because of this, we're left with a pretty stark choice. On one hand, you have the comforting delusions of the past, those stagnant prayers whispered into an indifferent gale, right? Clinging to traditional, cozy ideas of human purpose. But on the other hand, you have the cold, absolute clarity of the void. The Wizard Philosopher completely rejects any notion of traditional divinity in favor of this magnificent insignificance. It's a terrifying kind of freedom, really, realizing that the void is basically the only honest thing left.
That brings us to Act 2, which explores the anatomy of futility.
So what actually happens when you etch this kind of futility into the very marrow of the cosmos? Well, you plant the seeds of a paradoxical world tree right inside a dead god's chest. Think about how insane that is. Its roots anchor deep in the nigredo. That's the putrid soil of decayed hopes. Its trunk rises up as a massive pillar of solid obsidian, and it literally feeds on absolute negation. It bears this fruit that tastes of cold, crystalline clarity, and the tree itself exhales a divine energy that actively strips away all your comforting delusions. This obsidian tree stands as a massive, profound metaphor for the absolute death of hope.
This thing completely transcends our traditional ideas of life and death. By drawing from that dark nigredo, right where the celestial first struck the earth, it absorbs the putrid decay of failed spirits. It's a total living paradox. It uses these bitter nutrients not to nourish the human soul, but to actively starve its delusions. It literally turns the rot of failure into cold, hard clarity.
Now let's look at Act 3, Rituals of the Voidwalkers.
As you might guess, tending to a tree like this requires some incredibly macabre dedication. Every single day, a secretive cult known as the Voidwalkers approaches the putrid soil of the Nigredo, and their rituals are intense. They actually strike the cooling flesh of the divine to carve these frantic sigils, and they tend to the obsidian roots amidst this crackling arcane static. They are literally violently stitching the void of the sky directly to the rot of the earth.
And they do all this bathed in a sickening violet glow. Their work is completely devoid of grace. In fact, it's like a fire that consumes the very idea of having a path at all. They frantically pull apart the threads of reality, seemingly just to see if the cosmic fabric will bleed. It is the literal anatomy of futility, practiced with this terrifying, desperate devotion.
Which leads us to our final descent in Act 4, the Mirrors of Hollow Souls.
Surrounding the base of the stark arboretum are these silvered surfaces, deliberately placed to catch the flickering reflections of brave, foolish pilgrims. And when a seeker looks into the glass, they absolutely do not see their own face. Instead, they see the terrifying absence of both God and man. It's just a vast, echoing space of lost certainty. And as the tree's energy pulses, it magnifies this void until the air itself vibrates with the hum of 1,000 broken bells. It completely strips away every human delusion to reveal this beautiful, terrifying emptiness.
And this brings us to the ultimate truth of the Wizard Philosopher. He famously stated, "I have learned that being nothing is the highest form of everything." Wow. By turning the deity's death into this perpetual engine, he basically ensured the world could never again hide from its own magnificent insignificance. This profound emptiness, totally unbound from any comforting human purpose, is our only true inheritance.
So we have to ask ourselves, does the cold crystalline fruit of this obsidian tree actually offer true liberation, like the ultimate freedom of the overman? Or is it merely eternal suffering in the face of magnificent insignificance? I want you to stare into your own reflection today, into whatever mirror you use for a self, and seriously ask, is this destruction of hope a tragedy or a triumph? Until the void calls again, thank you for exploring the darkness with me in this explainer.